Hey, what's going on, guys, and welcome to another episode of Building on WordPress. My name is Josh Donnelly, and in today's episode, we are going to take a look at how to create a quasi-native tooltip element directly within Cornerstone. Now, we are going to achieve this using nothing more than the drop-down element inside of Cornerstone and a little bit of creative CSS. Now, I recommend watching along, learning, and giving this video a thumbs up, but if you would rather just download this element, I have componentized it and included it in my Pixels library, which you can find a link to in the description below. So, without further ado, let's dive in. So, as you can see here, I have already created my componentized version of this element, and you'll see I have some baseline text. And when I take my mouse and I hover that mouse over our baseline text, we get this nice little tooltip element that pops out, and we have our tooltip text inside of that. So, how do we go about creating something like this? Within Cornerstone here, you'll notice that I've set this up as a component. So, we have our text tooltip. You can simply come in here and you can change your primary text. And you'll notice that that changes right over here. And then this tooltip text, I can simply come in here and I can change my tooltip text to be something else, right? And now when I hover on change your primary text, I have changed my tooltip text to be something else. Now, if I want to change the background and the little caret of my tooltip here, I can simply come into tooltip background. I can make this red. And now when I hover on this here, everything is red. So I'll go ahead and save that. We'll jump out to the front end to see what that looks like. We'll refresh and hover, and there we have our tooltip in red. So how do we create something like this? Well, let's go ahead and start from scratch. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to add a new section here. Within this section, just to give it a little bit of structure, we'll go ahead and add a div with global margin, and this is where we are going to begin building. Now let's jump into our elements here, and we're going to grab our drop down element here and drag and drop that into our div. Now, by default, it's going to be our little open close toggle here, but if we jump on over to toggle here, we turn off graphic and we turn on text, we're now starting to build the foundation for our tooltip. Now we want our width to be auto, we want our height to be auto, we want our background to be transparent because this is just going to look like a text element. We want to come down to our border radius and turn that off, our box shadow and turn that off. And in our primary text, for now, we'll type in placeholder text or something along those lines so that we can see that here. Now that we've got all of that done, you could set your fonts and your colors as you see fit. But now what we're going to do is jump on over to the drop-down tab here. Now within the drop-down tab, let's go ahead and give it an initial color just so we can easily see it. Let's go ahead and do something like black. For now, while we're working on this, we are going to leave this trigger as click, but when we're done, we'll switch it to hover. So we'll leave this on click. And let's go ahead and just add some text inside of our drop-down. So we'll just grab a standard text element here, pop that in, and see how things are looking. And it's looking good, but we can't really see our text because that is also black. So we'll make the text white here, and now things are coming together. Now we'll make sure we have our drop-down selected again here, and I'm going to make this an inline drop-down, and that just ensures that the drop-down div is housed inline with our text here. And now we can begin adding some opinionated styles, things like padding. I might come in here and add 2M so that we have some nice padding all around, and just a little bit of border radius here. Maybe we do 0.5 M's all around to round things out. And I think that's looking pretty good. I think I want the default on this to be a little bit wider. So instead of 14 M's, maybe we do 20 M's or something along those lines. I think that's looking good as well. Now, because this is a tooltip, we might want to de-emphasize it just a little bit. So maybe we make the font size 0.85 M's, something like this here. So it's a little bit smaller than our primary text up top. And now I think things are coming together quite nicely. Now, in standard tooltip fashion, a tooltip typically animates above the text, not below the text. And so if we wanted to mimic that, we're going to jump into our drop-down tab here. And where we have position, we are going to set this from auto to top right. And now it'll jump to the top and things are looking good there. Now, one thing I like about tooltips is they usually have some sort of caret that associates them with the text. You'll notice if we jump on over here and hover on change your primary text, we have this little triangle down at the bottom here that's sort of showing that this text up top is associated with what we're hovering on down here. So how do we achieve something like that? Well, it's actually super easy. What we're going to do here is click on our dropdown, and inside of that dropdown, we are going to add an element. So we'll go ahead and click Add Element, and the element we're going to add here is simply an empty div. Let's go ahead and name this Triangle. and we are going to take this div and we are going to set its position from relative to absolute. Now that's not going to do a whole lot just yet. You'll notice it just sort of pops it down here, but we are getting there. Now under our width for this div, let's set it to 0, and under our height for this div, let's set it to 0 as well. Now what we're going to do is come into the Customize tab here, and under our element CSS here, we're going to type in $EL, which targets this specific element here. We'll do our curly brace here and open that up. And now we're going to add just a little bit of custom CSS. We're going to type border left, 25 pixels, solid, transparent. And then we're going to do border right, 25 pixels, solid, transparent. And then we're going to do border top, 25 pixels, solid. And for the sake of example here, let's make this red so you can kind of see what's going on. Now you'll see we have this red triangle living right here. Now we want a little bit of an offset on this so that it functions as sort of a caret hanging down there. So we're going to jump over to our triangle primary tab, scroll down to where we have position set to absolute, and now we're going to set our bottom position from auto to something like -15 pixels. Now we can play around with this to make it work properly, but -15 might be good. Maybe let's actually go with -10. That's looking pretty good there. Now let's jump back into our element CSS, and we'll go ahead and make this black so that it matches our background. And then the final thing is, just in case this text ever ran into this here, what we want to do is jump into the primary tab and make sure that our Z index is set to -1. That way it'll always fall behind our text here. Now, if I go ahead and I save this and I jump back out to the front end and I refresh, you'll notice that we have our placeholder text element here. We don't have it set to hover yet, so I need to click on this, but when I click, we now have our caret there. Now it's looking a little crowded. It's kind of close to our primary text here, so the one final thing I will do here is click on the drop down, scroll down to our margin, enable margin, unlink the sides, and on our bottom margin, we could add something like 0.5 ems and save. Now we can scroll up to the top, and where we have trigger set to click, we'll set that to hover. We'll go ahead and save, jump back out to the front end, refresh here, and now when I hover on placeholder text here, I see my tooltip text above that. I have the little caret pointing down, and things are looking good. Now, if you wanted to take this a step further and make this globally controllable and easily reusable from instance to instance, you could create an element or a component like I have down here. Now, what's nice about this is all of the design is done once globally in my component, and then every time I want to add another tooltip, all I have to do is come up here, type in text tooltip, drag this out right here. I can then come in here and write, this is a new tooltip. And then I could add additional text here. I can then change my tooltip color. We'll go with something like a dark purple here. And now I have a new tooltip created, but following all of my other global styles, things like rounded edges and font sizes and all of that jazz. So what's nice about this is it makes it very simple and easy because we have our primary text, our tooltip background, which automatically is styling the caret as well that we added in. And then we could underline or not underline our primary text. So the way you would do something like this is by jumping over to your components. And within our components here, you'll notice that we have added parameters. Now, I'm not going to get into all of this. If you want to see how this is set up and how this is created, go ahead and download this from the Pixels library, and you can see all of the parameters JSON yourself, so you can dive into how that's done, and you can add your own in there. But the way this is wired up is by connecting those parameter fields to our toggle fields. So you'll notice that our text is controlled via this primary text parameter here. You'll notice our tooltip text is controlled via this parameter here. And then you'll also notice that our triangle, so let's jump into that triangle that we created here, all of this is controlled via the element CSS, and specifically the color is controlled via this parameter here. So when we change the color, it changes everything accordingly. So hopefully you found this content useful. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.